have one.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. I am so happy to see this many people out to support reproductive rights, women's health, and pro-choice. I am going to get right into it and bring Senator Judith Schwenk, the chair of the Women's Health Caucus, up to speak to you first. Thank you, Senator.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. Really good to see everybody here this morning. I'm Judy Schwenk, and I've been fighting this fight for a long time. I represent the 11th District, Berks County, and I also feel like I represent all of you as well, all of you who are standing up to make sure that we keep our right to our own health care. We know, actually, for a fact, that the vast majority of Pennsylvanians and Americans, for that matter, value having access to abortion and reproductive health care. They value having the ability to start a family on their own terms and when they're in the best position possible to do that. And I know for darn sure that Pennsylvanians, and particularly Pennsylvanian women, value not having to ask a bunch of guys in suits about what kind of health care they're allowed to have. Right now, abortion is still safe and legal in Pennsylvania. We can't say that enough. It's still safe and legal in Pennsylvania, but there's no guarantee that it will always be that way. The Republicans who control the Pennsylvania House and Senate have made it very clear. Although recently, have you noticed this? They don't talk about it so much. They're not saying it out loud, but do not be fooled. That is what they said. That's what their intention is, running a constitutional amendment that would say that abortion is not a constitutional right. And when you ask them about it, well, what does this mean? What does this mean for the future? No, it doesn't mean anything. That's their response. Then why the hell are you doing it? You can say what you want for our Republican friends, but they do know how to read a poll. They know public opinion is not on their side on this one, but so many of them are so ideologically so far to the extreme on this, they're not going to back off on it. Look to the west of us in Ohio, where a 10-year-old girl who was raped had to travel to another state to get an abortion. A 10-year-old girl, imagine that. And then the doctor who cared for her is being sued for doing that. This is the America that might wait for all of us. And this is what could happen in Pennsylvania. We cannot let that happen. So my message for you is this. Stay engaged and get to know the people who are running to represent you. Make sure they know that you're watching. With the right makeup in the state legislature, we can pass legislation that not only protects your right to an abortion, but improves access to reproductive health care and delivers better maternal health outcomes for every Pennsylvanian, regardless of your race, religion, income level, or what community you call home. That's what we're fighting for. And let me remind you, do you remember how you felt the day after the election in November, after your presidential election? Remember that sick feeling in your stomach and your gut? You do not want to wake up after this election for governor, U.S. Senate, or members of the House and Senate. You do not want to wake up with that sick feeling, because you know what can happen. Please, please, please stay engaged and make sure that everybody else knows what we need to do to protect our rights here in the Commonwealth. Thank you, everyone.
I'd like to invite Sarah Neighbors up to the podium to share her personal story with everyone.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for being here. For everyone here, my husband back there, thank you. I want to thank our organizers, Ashley Christ and Sarah Griffiths, as well as Michaeline McCormick, who's been a friend and a mentor to me and who invited me to be here today. And I want to tell you a little bit about my experience with abortion. If there's anyone out here who doubts that abortion is healthcare, I'm here to tell you that without one, I would have died when I was 33, 17 years ago. I was 5 months pregnant with a child that I desperately wanted and started having some troubling symptoms. And after my doctor recommended an ultrasound and some additional blood testing, the news that she had for me was really devastating. The child I was carrying was missing parts of her brain and heart. Her neural tube was open at both ends, and in the very unlikely event that my pregnancy went to term, there was no chance that she would survive for more than 24 hours. So right from the start, there was only ever going to be one survivor of my pregnancy, and that was no guarantee because the abnormalities in that pregnancy had rendered me with hormone levels hundreds and thousands of times greater than they should have been. My kidneys were failing, and at the time that I checked into the hospital for that ultrasound, my blood pressure was 245 over 185. Something so shocking to me that I had to double check it with my doctor because I thought I heard it wrong. Here's what I remember from the day that I heard this news. My husband and I are sitting in a room with a small army of doctors. They're explaining to me one by one in halting language what might happen next if my pregnancy was allowed to continue, saying things like, your blood pressure is too high, your kidneys aren't working, none of this will get better until your pregnancy ends. You're at high risk for strokes and seizures, and we can't let you leave the hospital while you're still pregnant. What none of them was willing to say to me on that day was that I needed an abortion. I needed to end this pregnancy in order to preserve my own life. But they couldn't use the word. They were afraid. They were afraid because they didn't know my politics. They were afraid that I might refuse care if they used the words. So what happened in that conversation, which should have been a conversation between me, my husband, and my doctors and my care team, there was a presence there. There was a political presence in that conversation. And I can tell you right now, it was definitely uninvited. It had no bearing and it had no place in the room. Thank you. I did have an abortion later that day. The procedure was a DNX, also referred to as a partial birth abortion, because I was so late in my pregnancy. But it was the safest way to ensure that we could end this pregnancy while still making sure that I could have children in the future. So my doctor who performed this procedure for me and was present there, what she said is, this choice for you is pro-family. And I would go on to have another child. I have a 15-year-old who's unfortunately not here today. I think he'd definitely rather be here than in 9th grade. But so the interesting thing about this story is when I share it, even with people who really would identify as being against abortion, they know that this was the right choice. To a person, once you attach that story in those circumstances, they know that this was necessary. And so I have stopped using the euphemism, I lost a child, during that experience. I'm honest and upfront about the fact that I needed an abortion in order to save my life and to make my future family possible. And I want to end by saying that although my experience is extreme and unusual and has lots of twists and turns, so does everyone else's who has faced that decision of whether or not they need an abortion. I believe there are many valid reasons to access abortion care, and I trust women and their families and their doctors to make those decisions. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sarah. I'd like to call up Representative Dan Frankel to the podium. He is the Democratic chair of the House Health Committee.
Thank you. First, the story we just heard, that personal experience, is something that I've heard many times. The whole discussion about third trimester abortions and ruling them out. The fact of the matter is that women who have third trimester abortions, 99% of them wanted to have that pregnancy. And the idea that we would limit in any way the choices afforded to any pregnant person facing That kind of healthcare challenge is outrageous. So the whole discussion with, with this Lindsey Graham's 15-week national abortion ban or something takes away the ability of individuals, pregnant individuals and their healthcare providers and their families to make these incredibly intimate decisions. As was noted, I've had the privilege and the challenge of chairing the House Health Committee as the Democratic chair, which is in the minority. And in my almost 4 years in that role, we have, my Republican colleagues have, passed restriction after restriction on access, ban after ban. And the only reason those things haven't become law, besides the incredible advocacy of people like you and my colleagues in the House and the Senate, is the fact that we have a governor who's been able to provide that firewall. And as we face this election in November, we have to remember that. Abortion is health care. This is my favorite slogan of our modern abortion rights movement. It's a simple fact, and it makes clear that to interfere with abortion access is to deny a person health care, one of our most basic human rights. In Pennsylvania, though, you won't find abortion regulations in our Healthcare Facilities Act, or our Medical Practice Act, or even in the Health and Safety Code with other medical procedures. In Pennsylvania, abortion is regulated within the Crimes Code, Title 18, right after crimes related to property rights and right before crimes related to arson. And the language of the Abortion Control Act tells us a lot about how the legislative majority would like to treat abortion rights. It says, and I quote, that this Commonwealth shall extend to the unborn the equal protection of the laws. That's the language now. It's the result of decades of anti-abortion legislators consistently and relentlessly working to restrict abortion rights, despite broad support for abortion rights throughout this Commonwealth. Accessing health care is not a crime. But if Republicans control the legislature and governor's office, it's very clear that it will be. Anyone who becomes pregnant, regardless of the circumstances of the health condition of the pregnant person or fetus, and regardless of the potential outcome of the pregnancy, will be required to take that pregnancy to term and will be forced to give birth. But while the Republican legislative majority would like to make this basic health care a crime, a resounding majority of Pennsylvanians would not. We are going to continue to fight to ensure that families have control over their most intimate questions in their lives. Abortion is health care, it has to be, and health care is a human right. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Frankel. I'd like to bring Mary Ann Stein to the podium. She is the Legislative Associate for the American Civil Liberties Union.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I am Mary Ann Stein. I'm the Legislative Associate for the American Civil Liberties Union of Pennsylvania. Thank you for letting me speak today. As you've heard many other speakers say, abortion is still legal in Pennsylvania. But we are here today because there is an active threat against abortion access. On one of the last days the legislature was in session before breaking for summer, and while most Pennsylvanians were sleeping, legislators began the process of constitutionally stripping away our rights. The Pennsylvania state constitution protects abortion. We know that 89% of Pennsylvanians oppose criminalizing abortion. That opposition by PA voters is why these lawmakers passed this bill in the middle of the night. This amendment to the Constitution would strip away any protection for abortion care and would open the door for radical regulation of not just abortion, but other reproductive health care. Everything would be on the table. Access to contraception, in vitro fertilization, treatment of ectopic pregnancies, miscarriages, and the bodily autonomy of Pennsylvanians. While it's true the anti-abortion ballot question would not automatically ban abortion in Pennsylvania, its purpose is to enable the legislature to pass more severe abortion restrictions, including a total ban, by eliminating our relevant state constitutional-based rights. Supporters of the amendment are simultaneously sponsoring and supporting extreme abortion restrictions, including a 6-week ban, and have publicly stated that their goal is to ban abortion in Pennsylvania. In this midnight raid on our rights, legislators propose 5 changes to the Pennsylvania Constitution, the document that guarantees our rights and freedoms and that guides our Commonwealth. In just the span of a few hours, these legislators took the first steps to banning abortion, to disenfranchising voters, and to eliminate the checks and balances of state government. This blatant attack demonstrates how these rights are intertwined. These rights that we hold dear are inextricably linked and must be protected. When the Dobbs decision overturned nearly 50 years of precedent and stripped away the rights to bodily autonomy, our opponents said that the power to legislate abortion will return to the states. But your right to bodily autonomy, to make your own decisions about your health care, cannot be left to the whims of a majority of voters, and certainly not to the majority of lawmakers in this building. Anti-abortion lawmakers will stop at nothing to limit or ban abortion care. Don't be fooled. They moved an anti-abortion amendment and a voter suppression amendment in the same bill, long after they should have been done voting for the night. This isn't about granting us greater voice and more freedom. It's about suppressing our voices in order to take away fundamental freedoms. The voter ID requirement in this package would disenfranchise hundreds of thousands of otherwise eligible voters because they don't have proper ID and often can't get it, as the ACLU proved in a court a decade ago. Those disenfranchised will disproportionately be Black Pennsylvanians, older adults, people with disabilities, and people living in poverty. But that's their plan, right? That's their desired outcome. We see what they are doing. Legislating through constitutional amendment is a sign of a broken legislature where lawmakers can't accomplish the basic function of governing with the executive branch. Pennsylvania voters have expressed no desire to change our Constitution. Constitutional amendments cannot be vetoed. If these amendments to the Constitution succeed, Pennsylvanians risk losing fundamental rights. Our rights should never be erased at the hands of the majority. We see the attempt to thwart and undermine democracy. The ACLU of Pennsylvania is working with allies to stop these amendments. We have to stop them here. We have to stop them now. Pennsylvania votes for their state government on November 8th. Half of Pennsylvania state senators are on the ballot. All of the state representatives are on the ballot. The governor is on the ballot. Make sure you register to vote by October 24th. Get your friends to register and vote. If you want to vote by mail, request that ballot now. Vote based on the issues you care about. Vote because your rights depend on it. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to call Melissa Reed with Planned Parenthood Pennsylvania activist.
Good morning. Thank you all for showing up today. I'm Melissa Reed, and I'm a board member for Planned Parenthood Pennsylvania Advocates. I've stood on these steps many times in the past year as state after state, including Pennsylvania, has enacted or introduced cruel abortion bans. And I've repeated myself over and over again, but I'm going to keep doing it because apparently there are some people in there who aren't hearing us. Abortion is health care. No one is free unless they control their own body. Abortion is an essential part of sexual and reproductive health care. Abortion is common. Nearly a fourth of women in America will have an abortion by age 45. It has been practiced for thousands of years in cultures throughout the world. And abortion is a basic right. The ability to control your own personal medical decisions, including whether to end a pregnancy, is a fundamental human right. Restricting abortion access is dangerous and it's inhumane. Government should not play a role. In fact, Franklin and Marshall recently polled voters in August and found that almost 9 in 10 Pennsylvanians supported abortion care. But you know who doesn't? Mastriano. You know who else doesn't? Dr. Oz. You know who else doesn't? A lot of people running for office this year, unlike the champions behind me. Just last week, Senator Lindsey Graham and Representative Chris Smith introduced a nationwide abortion ban, a 15-week ban, the same kind of ban that would have blocked Sarah from making a life-saving decision for her family. They want to ban abortion in every single state, even where state law currently protects abortion rights, like right here in Pennsylvania. It is clear that this is and has always been about controlling our bodies. When our elected officials show you who they are, you better believe them. Yes. Since the fall of Roe, people from Ohio, from Texas, and from West Virginia have traveled to Pennsylvania to access abortion. To date, 16 states in this country have enacted abortion bans, and within a year, over half of the United States will have bans in place, which leaves millions of women and pregnant people without access to abortion in their own home states. And Pennsylvania is standing in the gap, and we have to protect that. The implications of these abortion bans are far-reaching and insidious. People are being denied life-saving medications because those medications may cause abortion. Medications for rheumatoid arthritis are being denied, and cancer treatments being withheld from pregnant people because of the medication's ability to end a pregnancy or cause birth defects. Women are being turned away who are experiencing miscarriage or fetal demise until they get sick enough, meaning they've gotten sepsis, before hospitals will treat them and care for them. As you just heard, Mary Ann was talking about the constitutional amendment. If this passed, it could significantly harm our ability to access abortion right here in Pennsylvania. It confounds me that anti-abortion politicians are hell-bent on going against the will of the people. Yet they ignore voters and push through bans and restrictions using shady tactics. And abortion bans are just the tip of the iceberg. When Roe fell back in June, Justice Clarence Thomas made it abundantly clear that other rights were at risk, like gay marriage and birth control. They're not going to stop. You've already heard from one patient storyteller. You will hear from another one right after me. And it is my hope that the energy and momentum today will spill over to your friends and family and to their friends and family, so there is a domino effect of support across Pennsylvania. We will never back down. We will fight every single day to make sure we all have the care and information to control our own bodies and build our own futures. This election is about power and control. Should these out-of-touch politicians gain or stay in power, they will throw healthcare providers and pregnant people in jail and endanger the health and lives of pregnant people across the country. No one, especially not politicians, should ever be able to take away your power to determine your life and your future. Know this, we will never stop fighting for you to get the care you need.
Thank you, Melissa. I'd like to call up our next personal storyteller to the podium, Anusha Viswanathan.
Thank you so much, organizers, for having me. I just want to share my story with you all. Roe has fallen, and I'm infinite in my sadness. My first pregnancy was both meticulously planned and at first easily joyous. I was in my medical training, and my husband was starting a career 8 years in the making. In our dual doctor household, expanding a family was a fine balance of timing, but voila, we were there. There were little hiccups after 12 weeks. Every test came back slightly out of range, and we dutifully pored over medical journals to elucidate their significance. It's just a one-off, we decided. Surely it couldn't be that every possible thing could go wrong in one pregnancy. Despite all of this, we smiled on that ordinary morning as we walked into the hospital for our 20-week anatomy scan, breaking from service and consults at the same hospital where we both worked. We faltered when the ultrasound tech suddenly turned quiet. "Is everything okay?" we asked as awareness prickled. We fell when the obstetrician was ushered into the room to tell us things were not looking well for our extraordinarily, profoundly growth-restricted pregnancy. I needed amniocentesis, genetic testing, counseling, all of it now, because there was a clock in Harrisburg that was ticking. Ticking as my husband sobbed and I lay motionless on the table. Ticking as we squeezed our hands until they became white and numb. Time did strange things as we fell into a limbo where we could only hurry up and wait, as the saying goes. We were lost in a fog of uncertainty, although certain moments are etched in my mind's eye even now. The arrival of my parents and my best friend, small and unsure, to help move us into our new apartment, chosen for its child-friendly layout, a task both mundane and now heartbreaking. A box of brownies from my husband's colleagues in oncology fellowship. Grief brownies, we joked. I ate them exclusively for days, sorrow and sweetness mingling seamlessly on my tongue. A tiny baby in the NICU, septic from an infection in his IV line, caught in a terrible catch-22. The near impossibility of finding intravenous access meant that we had to save this gossamer string that tied him both to life and death. I still see the parents now, parallels sharp through space and time, agonizing over their circumstances as I agonized over mine. They eventually withdrew care with heartbreak, compassion, and love. And then time was up for us, for this terrible final exam we never wanted, for a pregnancy we desperately did. The obstetrician who counseled me prior to my abortion was unfailingly kind and effortlessly competent. "Your decision is the right one," she said, the wisdom of her experience shining in her eyes. The night before, my husband held me through painful cramps and profound grief. We were somehow at peace with this decision, made with heartbreak, compassion, and love. The gruff anesthesiologist the day of my abortion abruptly stopped talking when he scanned my chart. We waited anxiously for a rebuke that never came. "I'm sorry," he said gently. Then the quiet twilight of conscious sedation, the aching stillness as I woke up. We walked into the parking lot of our hospital, a ritual simultaneously routine and now so strange. I went home to grieve my circumstances, but never my choice, the kindest thing I could do. In a parting kindness, my first pregnancy stood guard over the 2 nail-biting ones that followed, which were closely monitored thanks to knowledge and surveillance. For far too long has the anti-choice movement vilified those who seek abortions, raising the specter of bad motherhood over people like me, and using the far smaller number of second trimester abortions as a way to foment shock and impede access to this important healthcare need. Resources, access, education, empathy. I was given all of these in spades. I was lucky. Many of us are not. It is gut-wrenching and infuriating that people like me need to be flayed open, the contents of our life stories examined for veracity and for worth, but we are here at this moment. Roe has fallen, and I am breathless in my anger. I am angry at the bold-faced hypocrisy floated by those who would demand rights for the liminal space between conception and birth, rights they feel clearly supersede those of the already born vessel that carries it. Rights that seem to vanish once you fall out of that slippery slope of birth. I am angry that the Pennsylvania legislature, under the cover of darkness, voted to advance SB 106, which would propose an unconstitutional no right to abortion amendment. Make no mistake, this is the unvetoable first step to a statewide abortion ban. Those minimizing the intent of SB 106 are obscuring the impact of such a ban on health, on maternal health, morbidity, and mortality. It will disproportionately affect Black, brown, and indigenous people. It will disproportionately affect those with high-risk pregnancies in a time where certain regions are already suffering a critical lack of obstetricians and maternal fetal medicine specialists. Those minimizing the intent of SB 106 will resort to vagary when crafting exceptions to abortion bans. Legal scholars predict that in places where abortion becomes illegal, legislators broadly want to make it as difficult as possible by creating a standard people do not know with specificity whether what they're doing is right or wrong. Or perhaps there will be no exceptions, removing even that veneer of civility. But we know that the diverse circumstances that lead people to seek abortion illustrates the absolute need for reproductive autonomy because of anencephaly, omphalocele, aneuploidy, fetal hydrops, severe growth restriction, because of prolonged and preterm rupture of membranes, maternal chemotherapy and cancer, teratogenic exposure, because failure of access, failure of contraception, failure in sex education, because it is not safe, it is not the time, it is not the place. Because explanations need not be given, but they need not be hidden. Roe has fallen, but I am boundless in my hope. What else can I feel looking at this sea of faces filled with an anger that nourishes and a courage that is contagious? I am reminded of the words of Amanda Gorman. When the day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find the light in this never-ending shade? The loss that we carry, a sea we must wade. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is light, if we're only brave enough to see it, if we're only brave enough to be it. We are called at this moment to be brave without guarantee, to go forward despite the obstacles we face. It is a bitter pill to swallow, knowing that we may fight to lose before we fight to win, knowing that the only way out of this darkness is with the light of our own making, and between these heaviness, finding moments of connection that sustains us and build us. It is nearly a decade after my own abortion at a rally for reproductive rights and dignity and bodily autonomy, much like this one, when my friend reached for me as I fell into the ocean of my memories. "I'm here for you," she said. "I'm here to catch you, and I'm ready to fight. Now I am here in front of you. Roe has fallen. Time to fight."
Because abortion is healthcare, I think it's important that we hear from a healthcare professional. So I'm going to call Jessica Clements to the podium. She's an OB.
Let me gather myself after that. Please excuse me, I did not have a prepared statement today, but I've made a few in the last couple weeks. I'm an OBGYN in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. I'm here to tell you that I perform abortions. Every OBGYN in Pennsylvania performs abortions, and every OBGYN in the United States of America perform abortions. Some people, some legislators just don't recognize that that's what we do, because that is the ACOG standard of care. in order to care for our women, our pregnant people, and the young girls who come in with obstetric emergencies. For example, regularly when I am on call at the hospital, I am called to the emergency room to care for a pregnant person who is experiencing what's called an incomplete abortion or a threatened abortion. This is also known as a woman or pregnant person who is having a hemorrhage because she's having the start of a miscarriage. The standard of care to care for this person is to perform a D&E procedure. That is referred to as an abortion procedure. It is the same procedure to treat her. If that pregnant person has a baby inside her uterus that still has a fetal heartbeat, that is considered a pregnancy termination, and by our legislators' terms, this will be illegal. The same thing happens if I'm called to the emergency room for a young person with an ectopic pregnancy. This person may be very excited that she is pregnant. However, she finds out via ultrasound that the pain that she is having is because her pregnancy is located in her fallopian tube. On that ultrasound, it may show signs that that tube has ruptured and her belly is filling with blood. That will be considered a pregnancy termination. It is considered a pregnancy termination currently in many states, including Idaho. These patients do not have hours to get in a car or an ambulance or even a helicopter. When I encounter these emergencies, I have minutes. I bump the trauma cases to run my patient to the OR, to operate on her, to save her life. Hopefully, I may save her fallopian tube, but most likely it is damaged. I could at least save her life. She could at least keep her other fallopian tube so that she can go on and have future fertility options. Another case just happened to me in the past week. I can't tell you the day because that would be a HIPAA violation. However, it has played out over and over in my exam room over my 20 years as an OBGYN. A sweet 29-year-old couple came in. It's their first pregnancy. I saw them for their first visit 2 months ago. She was seen at 12 weeks for her ultrasound that I had ordered because she asked to have an ultrasound to screen for genetic or congenital anomalies. She had blood work also for this same purpose. The ultrasound showed the nuchal translucency, which is the thickness of the skin on the back of the baby's neck, was very thickened. I knew based on the number of millimeters, and any OBGYN would, that this baby is going to have and will develop significant congenital heart anomalies, as well as most likely has chromosomal anomalies. However, her blood work did not show this. But the blood work is not the standard of care to determine what the genetics of the pregnancy is. So I saw her recently at 16 weeks. Yes, that is 16.0 weeks. 1 week past 15 weeks. Lindsey Graham. So at 16 weeks, I had to have the difficult conversation with her. Her amniocentesis, which is a needle that's going to go into her abdomen, take some fluid off that pregnancy and give the actual genetics of the pregnancy, that's going to occur in 2 days. 2 weeks ago at 14 weeks, her ultrasound showed that her baby has gastroschisis. That means all of the baby's intestines are floating in the amniotic fluid because the baby has a hole in its abdomen. This baby also only has one leg. I know what the outcome of this pregnancy is going to be, but she's my patient. She has a choice. She'll make her choice. So I had the conversation with her after I offered to her and her husband to record the baby's heartbeat, because I knew, she didn't, that this is most likely the last office visit that she will have that will have a recorded heartbeat. After we did that, and her husband took a cell phone recording of the baby's heartbeat, and they both were happy but sad at the same time to do this, we talked about the fact that she is going to be soon faced with a choice. She said she knew she had this choice. She said, if my baby is not going to live once it's born, then I may make a choice personal to me about what I want to do. I don't want this baby to suffer. I'm going to have the amniocentesis in 2 days. Those results will take a week. I'm going to meet with some obstetric professionals in Center City, Philadelphia, to find out if there's anything that can be done to allow this baby to survive. But I know what choice that I'm going to make, she said. When she finds out all this information, she will be 17 weeks. I had to reserve myself from telling her that my concerns are the legislation that is currently in action and trying to be passed. In Pennsylvania, that might not happen until January or maybe May as it comes to a public vote. However, right now in Washington, Lindsey Graham and his crew are trying to propose a ban for all pregnancies 15 weeks and over, only protecting women for their health, for incest or rape. Therefore, her pregnancy would not be protected and allowed for her to have a pregnancy termination or abortion. She didn't want her baby to suffer. She is experiencing this as a first-time pregnant person. She wants to build a family. Let her decide. I'll give her some advice, but she's going to decide. Thank you.
I just want to thank everyone here so much for coming and making your voices heard. My name's Ashley Christ. I am not an activist. I am not really an advocate. But me and my friends got pissed off. So we felt like we had to do something. There is absolutely nothing that I can say at this podium today that will match the power expressed by the words of all of these speakers behind me, by their professional experience, their personal stories, their endless advocacy for reproductive and human rights. And I just want to again thank all of them for being here today and tirelessly fighting for our rights. Thank you. What I can say is that as I look at all the people gathered in front of me and behind me today, I'm really overwhelmed. You are beautiful, you are powerful, you deserve to live, you deserve to choose the direction of your own lives, you deserve to be recognized as full people who are capable of making difficult decisions about your reproductive health with the help of your family, your doctor, and your God, whatever that means to you. No person should be judged by someone else, by someone who believes they would have made a different decision. And the freedom from that judgment for personal and private decisions about your life and your health care are the pillars of our democracy. These decisions are never, ever easy. And as the Texas filibuster Wendy said, they are not made casually or quickly. And those in the government that we elected to represent us should refuse to make those decisions casually or quickly and against the people's best interest. And we are the people. I'm so glad that we could all gather here today in person with each other's support to stand and to yell and to be present and visible in this fight. But this rally today is not just for the people here who are visible. We are here today for the people who are not visible, for the people who are scared or ashamed or cannot be here because of their partner, their family, their preacher, their employer. There is still a stigma surrounding this issue, and so many people cannot be present and visible and outspoken about the importance of abortion and reproductive health care access has in their lives and their future. And we are here for you. Thank you so much.